Okay, so let's jump right in. Have you ever just stopped and wondered what would happen if a country completely closed itself off from the rest of the world? Like, no one comes in and no one goes out. What kind of culture would grow in a place like that?
It's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, it actually happened. Over 200 years ago, Japan did exactly that. And what happened wasn't nothing, it wasn't silence. Instead, it lit the fuse for this incredible explosion of art and culture, stuff that we still think is amazing all over the world today.
So this all went down during a long period of Japanese history called the Edo period. And back then, Japan was ruled by these powerful military leaders known as shoguns. The family in charge, the Tokugawa, they made a massive decision that was going to change Japan forever.
They kicked off a policy they called sakoku, which literally just means closed country. And this rule basically put Japan into its own little bubble, totally cut off from everything else happening in the world. And this is the key thing to remember. Being isolated meant that Japanese culture could develop in its own completely unique way, without any outside ideas mixing in.
And they were not messing around. The rules were super strict. Almost no foreigners could get in, and if you were Japanese, you were forbidden from leaving. I mean, just try to imagine that, not being able to travel or even learn about other countries. For generations, that was just life.
So what do you do when you can't look outside for new ideas? Well, you start looking inside. You focus on your own world, your own people, your own stories. And this isolation, it became the perfect soil for a really special kind of creativity to just blossom.
And that brings us to our first huge example of this, an art form called ukiyo-e. It came directly from people finding inspiration in the world that was right there in front of them.
Ukiyo-e means pictures of the floating world. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, the floating world was basically their name for the exciting parts of city life. All the entertainment, the theaters, the cool fashion, all the fun stuff. These woodblock prints were kind of like the photographs of their day, capturing the people and moments that everyone was talking about.
So what were they making pictures of? You know, everything they saw. Busy city streets, famous actors from the theater, beautiful women wearing incredible outfits, and of course, absolutely stunning Japanese landscapes. It was art about their real, everyday world.
But here's the part that was a total game changer. Because these prints were made using wood blocks, they could make a ton of them, and they were cheap. So for the very first time, normal, everyday people, not just rich lords, could actually afford to buy art and hang it up in their homes. This was art for everybody. It was huge.
I guarantee you've seen this picture before. The Great Wave by the artist Hokusai is probably the most famous piece of ukiyo-e in the world. It's powerful, it's beautiful, and it just freezes this super dramatic moment in time. It shows you just how incredible this art form got.
Okay, so people now had art for their walls. Awesome. But what about a night out? What about some live entertainment? Well, let's talk about another art form that just exploded in popularity: Kabuki theater.
You can think of Kabuki as being like the blockbuster movie of its day. It was this wild, amazing mix of intense drama, loud music, and spectacular dancing. And just like ukiyo-e, this was for everyone. Didn't matter if you were a farmer or a powerful samurai, everybody loved going to a Kabuki play. So, why was it so popular? Simple. The stories were about things that everybody could relate to. Love, being loyal, getting revenge, family drama, the big stuff. These weren't just fairy tales. They were about real human feelings and struggles that people in the audience could totally connect with. And the shows themselves were just electric. You had actors using these huge, over-the-top movements so everyone in the room knew exactly what they were feeling. The costumes were out of this world, and they told you right away who was the hero and who was the villain. Plus, you had music and dancing all the time to just pull you into the story.
Now here's a really interesting twist in the story. When Kabuki first started, women were actually the main performers, the stars. But then, in 1629, the government banned women from being on stage. So from that day forward, every single character, even the female roles, had to be played by male actors who specialized in playing women.
All right, let's shift gears now. We're going from the big, loud, colorful world of Kabuki to something much smaller, much quieter, but just as powerful. Let's talk about the poetry of haiku. So a haiku is a super short poem. We're talking just 3 lines. It's not trying to tell you some epic story. Instead, its whole job is to capture a single, perfect little moment. Usually something beautiful that you'd find in nature, like the feeling of the wind or the sound of a frog jumping into a pond.
And it has a very simple, very strict structure. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7. And the third line goes back to 5. 5, 7, 5. That's it. This tiny little box forces the poet to choose every single word so carefully. Just listen to this famous one from the great poet Matsuo Bashō. An old silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond. Splash. Silence again. Can you picture that? Can you almost hear it? In just 17 syllables, he paints a complete picture and gives you a whole feeling. That's the magic of haiku.
So, we've got woodblock prints, we've got dramatic theater, and we've got these tiny, perfect poems. What does it all mean when you put it together? Let's connect the dots and see why this whole period is so important.
It really comes together pretty nicely, doesn't it? Ukiyo-e was all about creating art for everyone. Kabuki was about telling dramatic stories about real life. And haiku was about finding beauty in the smallest, quietest moments. Every single one was a different way for people to look at their own world and celebrate it.
So, in the end, closing the doors didn't starve the culture, it did the opposite. It protected it. It was like building a greenhouse, creating the absolute perfect conditions for this totally unique and beautiful culture to grow, completely safe from all the outside influences.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Today, we're connected to everything and everyone all the time. But what if you weren't? What if for one whole year you had no internet? No new movies, no new music, no outside ideas? What would you create? What kind of stories would you tell? It's something to think about.